Welcome to Mr. R's Art Class. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thumbs, subs, and ring that bell. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to make your original monster, original creature, taking different characteristics that you chose from different animals and put those together to make one original monster or one original creature. This is going to be something that you do really quick. You could find your images on Google. You could use those images. You could play around with the different direction, the different orientation, the different rotation of these different images. So this is just something that you do really quick to get your idea on paper. It shouldn't take too long. This is, again, for your rough draft. Your final draft is going to be on a large piece of paper, on a tabloid-sized piece of paper. So again, I'm just showing you how to take your different images that are around the same size, put them together to make your own original creature, your own original monster in a really fast, quick way. So when you're ready to start making your animal, you could go over to Google and type in random animal list. And you could click on that first link there. It says random lists there. And when you go to the randomlist.com, it'll give you a list of animals. Right when you go to the website, it'll generate 6 different animals, and you could control that down here if you want. If you wanted to show a few more animals, you could do that. Make sure that duplicates is checked off, because otherwise they'll give you the same animal. And then if you don't like the animals that it gives you, you could rerun it here. And so you could look at some of the animals that it does give you automatically, and you could think of some of the characteristics that you do like about the animals that it chose for you randomly. And so on this one here, I might be interested in looking at the horns of this steer, and maybe the face of this mouse here. And so what you could do is you could start looking up some of these characteristics of these different animals. Maybe you like the tail of the porpoise, you like the head of the mouse, the horns of the steer, and you would look up those characteristics individually and try to find images that show those characteristics. So once you kind of figure out which characteristics of those animals you do like, you could go ahead and search those again through Google. And so here I typed in mouse side view. So maybe I want a good view of the side of this animal, because I want it to actually show the tail. And I could add the porpoise tail here to the end of this mouse here, but I still want to know what the side of this mouse looks like. And maybe I might even choose this one here because I want to add the horns of the steer, and I want you to be able to see both sides of the horns on the right side and on the left side. So maybe I might choose one of these animals, and I could choose maybe this one here because it shows me the tail as well. And so I could add, it'll be a little bit easier for me to add in the porpoise tail, or maybe even this one here, so you can see the horns. So look around at some of the different images that Google provides, and you could right click on an image and you would go down where it says copy image. So then go over to Microsoft Word, and then you could paste in those images. So you would right click and paste, and you could crop some of these characteristics. Maybe I just want to focus on the head there, so then I would right click again and go over to where it says crop, and maybe I want to get rid of the tail. It's really up to you. If I just want to focus on this head here, and so we'll get rid of everything else. Once you hit crop, and those black marks will pop up, click on the image, and then you could zoom in on some of those areas there to kind of see some of that more in detail, so you could draw this a lot bigger than on just a regular sheet of paper, because ultimately you can draw this on a big huge piece of paper, and you want to be able to see those characteristics as best as possible, so you could redraw these on that blank sheet of paper. So do this with some of the other characteristics. So you could do this the same thing with the porpoise tail, you could do the same thing with the steer horns. And again, if you don't like some of the animals that the random list generates for you, then you could go ahead and hit rerun, and it'll rerun a whole list of different animals. So go ahead and play around with the different animal lists, try to figure out which characteristics work the best. Maybe if you get a bird, you could add some of these, you could add the feathers in here. Maybe you won't have fur, it'll have actually feathers. And so once you're happy with some of the characteristics that you did find, go ahead and print those out, place them together, put them together on a rough draft, and then from that rough draft, we'll put it on a final draft. Okay, so here's one thing you could do once you have all of your images. I'm going to go ahead and use the head from the mouse here. I'm going to use this tail from the porpoise, these horns from the steer, and then the body or the feathers from this parrot. First thing you want to do is when you print out these images, try to get these different elements of these different animals around the same size. So this body of this parrot is around the same size of this mouse. This tail looks like it would look like it'd be a good size to kind of go on the end of this mouse's tail. And then these horns are in the same direction or rotating the same direction as the head of this mouse here too. So I'm not trying to figure out which rotation these horns should be. I'm finding an image of this steer for these horns that could go in the same direction of this mouse. So try to find different elements of different animals that look around the same size that would fit perfectly, so you're not trying to scale or trying to resize some of these different elements to the animal once you're doing this tracing. So what you could do to get a quick idea of what your animal is going to look like is you could go ahead and grab a tracer, you could grab your images, and we could go ahead and layer all of those different things, all those different elements from all these different animals here, and get a good idea of what our animal or what our creature or what our monster is going to look like. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and grab a blank sheet of paper, grab your tracer, and you want to center your paper, your blank sheet of paper. Again, this is on a small sheet of paper. Your final draft is going to be on a large piece of paper. So I'm just kind of quickly doing a quick tracing of this animal here. And we could probably even keep the hands of the mouse. And again, this is just a quick tracing so you could get a quick idea of what your animal or your creature is going to look like. And I'm just kind of doing a quick tracing here to get a good idea. Maybe I don't want to do the horns of this steer. Maybe I want to do the ears of something else. And again, this tail here is going to be of this porpoise or a dolphin tail. And if you're having a hard time looking or seeing the drawing underneath the tracing, you can go ahead and lift up your paper, and that kind of helps you kind of get a good idea. Maybe your ears want to be a little bit different too. Okay, so again, a quick tracing of what your main animal is going to be. Alright, so then you just grab maybe the second element that's on that same piece of paper. So maybe it's going to be a dolphin tail. So you would trace that. Again, when you're finding these images, make sure that they are around the same size so you're not spending a whole lot of time trying to scale up these different images. So that's those two images there, the porpoise tail and then the main body of the mouse. So you can move those to the side. So you can move those to the side. Then you could grab one of your other images. Right, so these are the horns. Maybe you have to rotate them a little bit. Maybe you have to move them around. So this first horn would actually be on the top. Right, it's closest to us. Right, so you would erase all these elements on the bottom. You might rearrange this other horn here. Right, so you're not spending a whole lot of time trying to scale up these different elements here. So this is what it looks like so far. Alright, and then the reason why I got this image of this parrot so I could see some of the feathers here. And maybe you could just freehand that there. So instead of just fur like a regular mouse, you could go ahead and maybe trace some of these feathers, or you could try to freehand some of these feathers here. Right, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time drawing these different elements, these different characteristics. Right, since these are feathers, you would have the next layer here kind of be offset. So when I say offset, that means that between these two feathers here, I would have this next layer of feathers. Right, so maybe you want to change the nose here. You could even use the beak from this parrot here too, to kind of give it an extra element. So you have the face of a mouse, you have the horns of a steer, the tail of a porpoise, the body of the mouse, but on top of that we actually added the feathers. Right, so you could even change the feet here. Maybe it looks too much like a mouse to you, but you would go ahead and keep adding these different elements here. You could ink it up, you could go ahead and put permanent marker on it. This is just for the rough draft. Right, so that was a quick rough draft that was less than 5 minutes. And so print out your images. When you're printing out your images, make sure they're around the same size. Make sure they're around the same size so that your tracing could be a lot quicker. The rough draft is on a small piece of paper. Ultimately, your final draft will be on this large piece of paper here. So on a big tabloid-sized piece of paper. And so what you would do is you could either create a grid transfer of this, or I always try to encourage you to try to get used to drawing without tracing. So go ahead and take this small draft, take this small drawing, and go ahead and scale up. Try to take as much piece of paper as possible. Maybe you have to rotate this tabloid-sized piece of paper to kind of fit the animal of your choosing and the different characteristics, right? So go ahead and play around with the different animals. So when you're ready, you could go ahead and get a permanent marker if you want to. You could grab a pen and you could kind of highlight some of these different areas here, some of these main characteristics, so that they stand out. So if you're going to do a grid transfer, you could do the grid over this image and you can see a little bit better, and those characteristics will stand out a lot more if you do it with ink here. So I'm just going to do this real quick. And if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And feel free to watch any of the other related videos.